Hey everybody, it's Zohar Stars again doing another Saturn transit video, and this time it's the last house. It's the 12th house. Saturn's transit through the 12th house. Alright, so the 12th house is the final house of the 12 houses in astrology, and it is a spiritual house. It is of the dream world. It is of the sleep, bedtime matters. It is of the subconscious mind. Saturn is the planet of karma, okay? But he brings illumination to the area of the house in which he's transiting. He's the great teacher. He brings awareness to areas that we're not typically aware, our subconscious. Saturn can be harsh. He's the stern, strict father in astrology. He rules the 10th house of the father. And he can be a little hard at times. And in the 12th house is one of the times when he's a little bit harder than some of the other houses. He's pretty tough in all the houses, don't get me wrong. But the 12th house is because it's things that we weren't aware of consciously. It depends a lot on the sign that occupies your 12th house, how exactly it's going to play out. But what he does in the 12th house is he shows you how you have sabotaged yourself in some way, shape, or form. We all do it. He shows us what is really going on, no matter what we thought was going on, our perception of ourselves and our behavior and what we've done all throughout the past 12 transits of Saturn before he finally gets here is up for introspection. Now, Saturn can bring about fears, worries, anxieties, because it's the house of hospitals, institutions, sanctuaries, as well as the dreams and the subconscious. So he shows us where we have sort of imprisoned ourselves. And also it's the house of self-undoing, where we realize the mistakes we made and the behavioral patterns and the things we've done that maybe haven't really worked in our best interest. He shows us how we kicked ourselves, and it can be pretty eye-opening. And the reason why is because, like I said, it's unconscious. It's our subconscious. Some of the things we were aware of, and we can feel guilty and bad for those things. Being that it's a spiritual house as well, a lot of people reach out to spirituality. Meditation is a really good thing to do while Saturn transits your 12th house, to clear your mind, to let go, and to release, because you can carry some guilt with you during this transit. Irrational fears, anxieties, worries, and things can come about as well, because it's the house of spirits, spirit beings, spiritual things. So the ghosts of the past can come haunt you during this time period. And it's really just to bring awareness so that way we can overcome our fears, because that's what Saturn in the 12th house ultimately is about, including those that are born with Saturn in the 12th house. The ultimate soul evolution is to overcome fear of death, fear of spirits, fear of ghosts, fear of anything, because living in fear is a place of restriction where you cannot be yourself, accomplish the things in your life that you set out for yourself, whether it's fears of what other people think of you, which could be like if you have Capricorn in the 12th house, the 10th house is about public and what the public see of you. So Saturn transiting there or Saturn there can make you fearful of that, just as one example. But while Saturn is transiting through the 12th house, you become very aware of a lot of things. It's kind of like flashbacks of all the things that you've done and all the things that you've been a part of. And if you've been living a pretty decent life and you haven't really, made a whole lot of mistakes, it's not really that bad of a transit. It can be deeply spiritual as well. where you find your own inner God, or you find God. Um, you reach out for spirituality, some sort of safety, some sort of sanctuary. Um, but really, because it's a water house and it's a house of Pisces where things are intangible, you can feel like a lot of things that you're putting your efforts into are kind of falling apart. It's like you're building and fading away, building and fading away, like you're swimming in this swampy, watery territory where you're kind of a little confused, you're kind of reminiscing, reflecting, going over things you try to start fall away. Now, some people meet can meet their soulmate during this transit. I've seen happen many times, or a very spiritual companion, or their twin flame, or their soulmate, a person that comes into their life to teach them that good does exist in some way, shape, or form for those that have suffered much in their life during this transit. Maybe you had a history of terrible relationships and Saturn transits this house, and all of a sudden you meet somebody who loves and respects you and is spiritual, and you spend spiritual time together, and it lasts during the transit, and then when the transit moves into your first house, the relationship can end. It doesn't have to, it can carry on, but often the relationship ends if it was a temporary learning lesson for you to find your faith, your hope again in whatever it is you've lost hope and faith in. Whether it's love, whether it's spirituality, whether it's, whatever aspect, humanity. You could lose hope in humanity, and then Saturn transits there, and he can bring about situations and circumstances to where you can see the good in people again. So that way you can start new when Saturn moves into your first house of you, where he wants to build you, and he's going to spend all of his time in making you the best version of yourself that he can. And oftentimes during that time period, again, you can become alienated. You can listen to my Saturn's transit through the first house to learn more about that. But as he's finishing out the 12th house, it's about endings, so that way you can have a new beginning. So it's letting go of all your false beliefs, all your false fears, facing them too, facing your fears, seeing what patterns have brought you to this point that were unhealthy, attachments that were unhealthy. A lot of what you've experienced can come back to you during this time period, so that way you can finally realize it, because lessons are often not learned right away. Sometimes we keep getting burned, and then we finally get it. And if you haven't learned the lessons while Saturn was transiting through the first all the way through the 11th, and then he moves into the 12th, then when he's in the 12th is when you're going to have to face up to those, and you're going to have to realize those once and for all, so that way you can start a new cycle when Saturn moves into your first, beginning with you, making you the best version of yourself that you could be. The experience will be different for everybody, because Saturn is karma. So you can face a lot of karmic implications during this time period based on behavioral patterns or things that you've done. And usually it's by realizing them and feeling guilty about them, or seeing how they've actually contributed to any unhappiness that you've experienced in your life. And the thing is, with the benefits of astrology is exactly this. Is that, we're born into our birth charts, and that's just by fate, that's just by past lives, that's by karma, family karma, whatever it is that we have to live out our karma, or we have to experience situations that are disappointing or hard, or we get born into a perfect chart where everything is wonderful. Whatever our karma is from our past lives or previous lives is what astrology teaches us. And so we act out unconsciously a lot of the aspects, the aspects in our birth chart, where the placements are, the aspects. If you have difficult aspects, you may have fears, irrational fears, anxieties, control issues, whatever they are. There's an array of different ones that we all have. Over optimism and foolishness, impulsiveness, you know, fear of the worst, excuse me, you know, needing to control because you're afraid of loss, whatever they are, all these are going to come up during Saturn's transit through the 12th house, and you're going to realize a lot, and it's very good because it then allows you to stop doing those things and to start a new cycle with Saturn in your first with total awareness, with you overcoming all of these things, letting go, forgiving yourself, forgiving others, finding your spirituality, finding your path, finding healthy outlets. It's also the house of hospital, so you can fall ill or you can fall tired, you can feel vague, you can feel confused. There's a lot of different things that can happen during this time period because it's about resting, facing up to things, and letting go and healing. And that's ultimately what this transit is about. So it is a very positive transit. At the end of it, you're going to realize a lot of things and you're going to really be thankful for them. You're going to be like, wow, thank you for showing me this. I had no idea. Because that's truly what happens during this time period. It illuminates our subconscious. And that's something that we don't have access to a lot, you know, the majority of the time, unless we're really trying to tap into it. We don't know. We are also being influenced subconsciously by the planets. And that's a whole nother topic. But that's what Saturn's transit through the 12th house is about. It's about healing, uncovering subconscious, facing fears, overcoming them, finding your spirituality, your faith, releasing things that aren't working for you, and taking care of your physical health and your body, your mind-body connection, spiritual body connection, through all different ways, whichever you feel guided to. But that's what this transit is about. So, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining me for my Saturn transits. You can go through my playlist and check out all the house transits. I did them all. And this is the final one, so I'm a little bit tired. But it's a really good transit all in all. While you're going through it, you may not like it so much. But at the end of it, you will like it, as with all Saturn transits. You will see the purpose. You will be appreciative of it. So again, thank you so much for joining me. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like your own personal reading, you can visit my site at www.illumastrology.com. You can also subscribe to my channel. Be sure to click the bell to get notified of my uploads as they come, because I'm going to be doing a lot of astrology videos, more even about synastry. So stay tuned. Thanks again. All the best to you.